All right, now this is Tull, Tull. Okay. Ante keeps on rubbing his knees. His overalls are faded. On one knee, a serge patch cut out of a pair of Sunday pants wore iron slick. No man mislikes him more than me, he says. A fellow's got to guess ahead now and then, I say. But come along is short. It won't be no harm done either way. She'll want to get started right off, he says. It's far enough to Jefferson at best. But the roads is good now, I say. It's fixing to rain tonight, too. His folks' buries at New Hope, too, not 3 miles away. But it's just like him to marry a woman born a day's hard ride away and have her die on him. He looks out over the land, rubbing his knees. No man's soul mislikes it. No man's soul mislikes it, he says. They'll get back in plenty of time, I say. I wouldn't worry none. It means $3, he says. Might be it won't be no need for them to rush back. No ways, I say. I hope it. She's a-going, he says. Her mind is set on it. It's a hard life on women for a fact. Some women. I mind my mammy lived to be 70 and more. Worked every day, rain or shine, never a sick day since her last chap was born until one day she kind of looked around and then she went and taken the lace-trimmed nightgown down she had had 45 years and never wore out of the chest and put it on and lay down on the bed and pulled the covers up and shut her eyes. You all will have to look out for Pa the best you can, she said. I'm tired. Ante rubs his hands on his knees. The Lord giveth, he says. We can hear Cash hammering and sawing beyond the corner. It's true, never a truer breath was ever breath. The Lord giveth, I say. That boy comes up the hill, he is carrying a fish nigh high long as he is. He slings it to the ground and grunts, ha, and spits over his shoulder like a man. Darn nigh long as he is. What's that, I say, a hog? Where you get it? Down to the bridge, he says. He turns it over, the underside caked over with dust where it is wet, the eye coated over, humped under the dirt. Are you aiming to leave it laying there? Ansay says. I aim to show it to Ma, Vardaman says. He looks toward the door. We can hear the talking coming out on the draft. Cash too knocking and hammering at the boards. There's company in there, he says. Just my folks, I say. They enjoy to see it too. He says something watching the door. Then he looks down at the fish laying in the dust. He turns it over with his foot and prods at the eye bump with his toe, gouging at it. Ansay is looking out over the land. Vardaman looks at Ansay's face, then at the door. He turns, going toward the corner of the house when Ansay calls him without looking around. You clean that fish, Ansay says. Vardaman stops. Why can't Dewey Dow clean it, he says. You clean that fish, Ansay says. Ah, Pa, Vardaman says. You clean it, Ansay says. He don't look around. Vardaman comes back and picks up the fish. It slides out of his hands, smearing wet dirt onto it and flops down, dirtying itself again. Gap-mouthed, goggle-eyed, hiding into the dust like it was ashamed of being dead, like it was in a hurry to get back hit again. Vardaman cusses it. He cusses it like a grown man standing in straddle of it. Ansay don't look around. Vardaman picks it up again. He goes on around the house, toting it in both arms like an armful of wood. It overlapping him on both ends, head and tail. Darn nigh, big as he is. Ansay's wrist dangles out of his sleeves. I never seen him with a shirt on that looked like it was his in all my life. They all look like Jewel might have give him his old ones. Not Jewel, though. He's long-armed, even if he is spindling, except for the lack of sweat. You could tell they ain't been nobody else's but Ansay's that way, without no mistake. His eyes look like pieces of burnt-out cinder fixed in his face, looking out over the land. When the shadow touches the steps, he says it's 5 o'clock. Just as I get up, Cora comes to the door and says it's time to get on. Ansay reaches for his shoes. Now, Mr. Bungeon, Cora says, don't you get up now. He puts his shoes on. He puts his shoes on, stomping into them like he does everything, like he is hoping all the time he really can't do it and can quit trying to. When we go up the hall, we can hear them clumping on the floor like they was iron shoes. He comes toward the door where she is, blinking his eyes, kind of looking ahead of himself before he sees, like he is hoping to find her setting up in a chair maybe, or maybe sweeping, and looks into the door in that surprised way, like he looks in and finds her still in bed every time, and Dewey Dow still fanning her with the fan. He stands there like he don't aim to move again or nothing else. Well, I reckon we better get on, Cora says. I got to feed the chickens. It's fixing to rain, too. Clouds like that don't lie, and the cotton making every day the Lord sends. And the cotton making every day. That'll be something else for him. Cash is still trimming at the boards. If there's ever a thing we can do, Cora says. Ansel, let us know, I say. Ansay don't look at us. He looks around, blinking in that surprised way like he had wore himself down, being surprised and was even surprised at that. If Cash just works that careful on my barn. I told Aunt say it likely won't be no need. I say I so hope it. Her mind is set on it. He says I reckon she's bound to go. It comes to all of us, Cora says. Let the Lord comfort you. About that corn, I say, I tell him again I will help him out if he gets into it a tight with her sick and all, like most folks around here. I done hope him so much already I can't quit now. I done hope him. Maybe help him. I aim to get to it today, he says. Seems like I can get my mind on nothing. Seems like I can't get my mind on nothing. Maybe she hold out till you are laid by, I say. If God wills it, he says. Let him come for you, Cora says. If cash just works that careful on my barn, he looks up when we pass. Don't reckon I'll get to you this week, he says. Tain't no rush, I say, whenever you get around to it. We get into the wagon. Cora sets the cake box on her lap. It's fixing to rain. Show. I don't know what he'll do, Cora says. I just don't know. Poor Nancy, I say. She kept him at work for 30-odd years. I reckon she is tired. And I reckon she'll be behind him for 30 more years, Kate says. 30 years more, Kate says. Or if it ain't her, he'll get another one before cotton picking. I reckon Cash and Darrell can get married now, Eula says. That poor boy, Cora says. The poor little tyke. What about Jewel, Kate says. He can too, Eula says. Humph, Kate says. I reckon he will. I reckon so. I reckon there's more gals than one around here that don't want to see Jewel tied down. Well, they needn't to worry. Why, Kate, Cora says. The wagon begins to rattle. The poor little tyke, Cora says. It's fixing to rain this night. Yes, sir. A rattling wagon is mighty dry weather. A rattling wagon is mighty dry weather for a bird cell. But that'll be cured. It will for a fact. She ought to be taking them cakes after she said she would, Kate says. All right, that was the end of that one.